Well, Greg, thanks very much for joining us on CEO Hub.
Pleasure.
You spent a long time in the 90s working in long-distance marketing for Telstra, and I'm interested in exploring with you what sort of step it is from doing something like that to becoming a leader in the corporate world, and what sort of mindset change you have to undertake.
Well, I wouldn't sort of reference the long distance experience at Telstra, although that was a very valuable learning experience for me. I was very fortunate on two counts. Number one is I always wanted to be involved in business. And if I was lucky enough to actually head up a business, that's something that I just was able to galvanise within myself, that's something that I really wanted to do. And secondly, I had a very good mentor when I worked in Telstra, in fact, and I still remember the conversation. It was part of a one-on-one conversation. And he described to me that if you really want that to happen...
You want to be a CEO, want to be a leader?
A leader of the business. And
Yep.
He said that you need to develop skills in all of the non-specialist areas of a business. So go and be a marketing director, go and be a sales director, go and be an operations manager, and so on. HR, finance and legal are specialist skills. You need to understand those, but go and get the experience. So my time at Telstra was developing the marketing experience, which then helped me make the transition to where I am today.
Well, so at what point in your career did you decide you wanted to be leading a company?
Probably the early 20s. I had an opportunity to run a mobile phone section of Telstra's business before the job you just mentioned, and I was the state manager there. And just three things appealed: the ability to read a market, the ability to work with smart and clever people, and enjoy the tremendous satisfaction when you actually have a successful plan come together. They were the things that made me think this is actually really what I want to do.
Early 20s, so you decided you wanted to be a CEO quite young.
Well, I thought if I'm lucky enough, but if I could get to be a head of a division and then maybe ultimately, lucky enough, but just to be a senior executive practically was probably what I was aspiring for in the mid to late 20s.
And so what you're saying is then you actually went into the marketing side of things in long distance in Telstra with that in mind, did you?
Absolutely.
With the idea of sort of rounding out your skill set.
Yeah, because again, this particular gentleman that I work for, and I still remember the conversation, he said that you should develop your career like a pyramid. That every time that you know what to do when things go right and wrong inside a company. And people who aspire for the job too high before it matches the experience end up like an inverted pyramid. So you're working on the vertex, and that's not a good place to be.
Explain the pyramid thing to me. So
well, you just have a skills base that says, I've seen this before. I've got some affinity about what to look for, or this person's telling me some information. I have a sense of how to digest this information. You've just got the street experience to know what's right and wrong, or at least inside your stomach. Yeah.
And what are the skill sets that you think you need in order to become a leader of a company like this? You decided marketing. What else?
Oh, certainly strategy and business development. That's a very important part. Running a sales business, and if you can be lucky enough, running an operations business, which is of course related but subtly different to an operations business. Sales business. So those sorts of things. From my transition here, then the biggest challenge for me going forward when I took over this role, of course, is that I then had to work with a board that I'd never been responsible for before, and also then working with the public market. So they were the two things that I really hadn't had before. The operational side of the job I was pretty comfortable with, but dealing with a board and the public markets was the next step for me, taking this job.
After the period as marketing at Telstra,
yes,
you put together a sales operation.
Well, I ran
experience?
I had that in Census, so I looked after strategy and business development with an executive you probably know, Andrew Day, when we were at Census.
Yes.
And then I took over the online operations when we ran print and online businesses separately at that time when I left that company around late 2004. So that's where I sort of got marketing, sales and operations and strategy and business development.
And what about the stint with World Directories, the Belgian, I think it's a Belgian company?
Yeah.
How did that fit in with your career progression?
Well, of course, Australia, and as it's well known, we now work in at least in an international or global economy, and the opportunity to work overseas and have exposure to how you work with different cultures was another leg on the journey. So I've done a lot of business in the United States, I've done a lot of business in Asia. I'd visited Europe a lot, but I'd never actually worked in Europe. So again, to head up the managing director component of that business for the online business was just another opportunity to go and work and live in another geography, and that just adds to the skills mix.
And you mentioned that running a company like REA now, you've got the relationship with the board,
Correct.
and the relationship with the stock market, and I suppose there's no way of preparing for that.
There's no.
It's in the deep end.
Correct.
And how big a change was that for you?
Well, it was a big change and yet a small change. So I just went back to some very basic principles, and that my job is to run the company and then communicate that to the board and the market. So we had some challenges where we had to go back and work out, well, what was the right strategy for REA? Did we have the right people doing the job? Were they rewarded and remunerated correctly? How was the company expected to make its decisions and its behaviour model inside the company? So I said to the board when I took the job at the interview process, that's going to be my approach. So I was very clear about how I was going to operate the company so that there was complete visibility. And what I try and do is just be completely consistent against that agenda. You know, I said I was going to do these 6 things. This is where we are progressing along this track. This is the strategy that we've laid down, and here's the results that we've forecasted. So to date, we've been very consistent, both in terms of our strategic intent and the results that we've been able to deliver.
And how different is it in explaining that, communicating to the board and communicating to the market? Is it much the same, or is it a different process?
It's different in the sense that you're fully declarative to the board about what you're doing, and you see the risks and the opportunities. With respect to the market, because it's a competitive marketplace, that we don't want to give too many signals to our competitors, and as a company we don't provide financial guidance, so we talk about the strategic direction of the internet and our part in the internet, and obviously we retrospective explain our results. So that's how we handle the market, but in terms of the board, it's just regular and constant communication with the board, and we've been very consistent in what we've said we've done, and we've delivered the results. So generally that helps the relationship.
You've now got global ambitions for REA, or you've had them, but did you have that at the beginning? Was that one of the things that you said to the board when you took over REA, that that's what you were going to do?
No, it wasn't actually. When I took over REA, there was an opportunity, I thought, to actually rationalise the multi-country operation that we'd had. So we actually exited 7 businesses in the first 9 months that I was here, and that was pre-GFC. And that was for a range of reasons, either that the market position was not good of those assets, or that the market was not a great market to operate a real estate business in. So for example, the United Kingdom, we were a number 3 player in a very good real estate advertising market, but that was a place that we were never going to make money. In Dubai, we had a number 1 business, but Dubai is not a good place for an advertising business. When the market booms, houses sell in the day, and when it's in the dust, nobody wants to advertise. So the market structure of Dubai, in our opinion, was wrong. So they are 2 examples of why we exited. We also then...
That's very interesting. So the houses either sell really fast or they don't sell at all.
They don't sell at all. I mean, I had some examples there, and I actually thought the country manager was having a bit of a joke with me. And he said, there were apartments in the boom where there were 500 units in the apartment, there'd be 700 people in the line paying the deposit. The first 500 would hand over the deposit and go and sell it to the back of the line.
Wow.
So it was basically day trading of units. And at that particular point in time, that I realised that probably wasn't a market structure where we were going to make any money. So, we had to then come back to Australia. We anticipated Google's arrival into this country and to this market in terms of real estate. We've spent a lot of money and a lot of effort upgrading our technology. I'm extremely proud of what the company's been able to achieve in the technology and business migrations that we've been able to do with our 3 major brands, realestate.com.au, realcommercial.com.au and casa.it. They're all now on modern platforms. We've got some very good people inside the company. So it was time to sort of regress, upgrade upgrade Australia, which is the core market, and we've done that very successfully. Italy is now coming along in leaps and bounds, and I wouldn't call ourselves as a global aspiration. I'd say that we have a multi-country aspiration, which is a very different statement.
I'm pretty sure I've seen the word global on your website.
It does,
as being where you're heading, global business.
Well, I don't ever think that we're going to be in the 242 countries of the world, I guess, or 30 or 40 countries, but certainly a multi-country operations intended.
But is it a different mindset to being a CEO of a company that operates outside of Australia as well as within Australia?
Oh, absolutely. We have some very basic principles that we want to apply. From a technology point of view, our businesses will not scale unless you're in markets where the technology is relatively common. If you have to make too many variations to your technology or your business model, you don't get any scale efficiency. So we look for markets like that. You've got to have incredibly good local people, that you trust and have a good relationship with. They've obviously got to speak English because we're not very multilingual in this country, and it requires regular visitation by me and other executives, and also late night and early morning phone calls. That's the gig of a multi-country operation.
And what about what's next for you? I mean, do you have a sense in your mind of how long a CEO should be running a company? Whether there's a natural time frame? I've interviewed Paul Little, for example, who's been running Toll for 25 years.
Right.
Is about to step down, but that's a long time. Some people don't. Some people say, "Oh, well, you know, that's rubbish about being a 5-year CEO." What do you think?
I would agree. I don't think it's right to put a time limit on it. I think that the decision as to whether I stay on the board, quite frankly, is the board number one, the market probably number two, and me number three. It's actually in that order. So, but if you're asking me, what I do is that if I'm no longer enjoying the role, which I'm no longer really adding value to the company, then that's probably time that I shouldn't be here. So that's the simple answer, is if you're adding value and you're enjoying what you do. So Paul's probably in the situation where for 25 years he's added value and he enjoyed what he did.
Yeah, well, so that goes for you now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now I jump out of bed every morning enthusiastic about coming to work. This company has got tremendous opportunities. We've got an increasingly competitive environment. I am naturally a very competitive person, so the size of the prize is big, the gap's narrowing, so I'm in the game.